Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this is the Talamanca Review. It is Tuesday, the 20th of February, 11:07 p.m., and I can't believe February is almost done. But what are you going to do? Tonight I'm going to do, it's all part of the plan. Part 2, or Redux. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. I'm actually not even sure what it means. It's just the way they re-released Apocalypse Now after 20 years. Apocalypse Now Redux. So I don't know, that word just kind of stuck in my head. I'd look it up, but I don't have two monitors in front of me right now. So yesterday we talked about a lot of things, and I had a listener send me an article about prominent Jewish commercial interests in China, like even going back to the 19th century, which is the 1800s. So yes, this is all part of the plan. And yesterday I spoke about a lot of things, and I'm not sure if I made the case for the last 50 years. I mean, it's all high level, right? But I mean, anything I bring up, you can go and do a deeper dive on yourself. You can go and, it was a very historical moment at the time. When I talk about Nixon going to China, believe me, in 1972, that was a big deal. And by the way, there's a third corollary. Okay, so these are what I call circumstantial ley lines, and there's no such thing as coincidence, and they can't be ignored. So within the same year or year and a half period in the early 70s, when I was about 6 years old, I think most of it took place in 1972. Three critical things happened. Number one, the World Economic Forum was formed, and Klaus Schwab was appointed, and he has been at the head of that organization for 53 years now. And that was in 1972. And they've had the same mission, and the way we are so short-sighted now, something like that seems really official. Oh, it's the World Economic Forum. It's existed since the Carter administration, right after Nixon. So, I mean, why is a former Secretary of State, Henry Kissinger, who was the Secretary of State under Richard Nixon, and as Anthony Bourdain said, anybody who visits Cambodia learns to hate Henry Kissinger. And there was that famous British writer, Christopher Hitchens. He was a relatively famous atheist, but he wrote on a number of topics. He was a very erudite man. And he wrote a book on Kissinger and made the case that Kissinger should be brought up on war crimes. There are a number of countries in the world Henry Kissinger cannot land in, or he will be arrested. If he were not protected by the Mossad and the CIA, he would have been killed by now. That's how hated Henry Kissinger is. So why would Henry Kissinger be involved in the formation of a private institution, the World Economic Forum? And it's not a governmental body. It's essentially just a think tank, but probably the most influential public-facing think tank in the world now. The real think tanks, and they're not really think tanks, they're adjudication committees, are by bloodline only, and quite frankly, you have to be selected. And here we're talking about feeder organizations like the Bilderberger Group, like the Council on Foreign Relations, like the Club of Rome, and they all feed up into the Council of 300, which is running the whole show. It doesn't get any higher than the Council of 300. and then you go into all the weird shit. But they're pretty much into the weird shit there. There's a bit written about the Council of 300 in The Light of Darkness, if you want to dig deeper into that. So this World Economic Forum is formed to begin influencing the world. And they've been involved in, I think, almost every fear campaign in the last 50 years. Holes in the ozone layer, global warming, polar ice caps melting, deforestation. I mean, some of it is valid. But their main job was to create fear, because when people are afraid, they need that fear lifted. And the only person who can lift the fear is the person or people who provide a solution to what is generating the fear. So it's the Hegelian dialectic problem, reaction, solution, which comes from the philosopher Hegel and was picked up on by Karl Marx. And to the best of my knowledge, Karl Marx was the first one to sort of patent it as a tool for manipulating the public mind. Problem, reaction, solution. Okay? So false flags are a problem. You have the reaction to the false flag. 9/11 is a classic example. Okay? And they've been doing this, and I keep saying this, they're really not that creative, and they have no real spiritual intelligence. Human beings who enter into this satanic Luciferian culture, which is really extraterrestrial culture, they may get an upgrade in their intelligence, but feeling is more important than intelligence for navigating reality. And they lose something, and they have huge blind spots. And one of the things they lose is creative intelligence. But they still have access to it, because in controlling all the money, they can control all the creativity on the planet by cherry picking the creative geniuses when they go to university. And, you know, the really smart ones will go very young, like 14, 15. If you're a bona fide genius, you'll be ready to enter undergraduate work by the time you're 12 to 14. That's how smart some of these kids are. And those kids and those human beings, like Tesla, are part of the Creator's dowry for the human race. But when they're born onto the planet, they get absorbed into an extremely negative system. This is an extremely important point. I'm going to take a pause here to make sure you understand what I just said. And I'm going to repeat it. The human race has not been abandoned by the Creator. The Creator has sent in all the minds and personalities and incarnations we need to solve all of our problems. The problem is the institutions that have come to take over the human experience. So the incarnational forces can't change that. They can't come right onto the planet and do it. We have to wake up spiritually and do it ourselves, and create institutions that really work for human beings, that are not co-opted by this Luciferian satanic underworld, this reptilian gray Anunnaki underworld. Okay? That's our job. And that's why one of the reasons I do this podcast is to just sort of wake people up. And the only thing I can do, and we've created a culture that is so transactional. Everybody thinks they can buy something. You know, well, if I pay $7,200 and I go on this ayahuasca retreat, I'm going to be fixed. No. It takes decades of intense, committed spiritual work and focus to change your consciousness. Now, I don't want to discourage people who listen to me who are older and think maybe it's too late. It's not. It's never too late. And spiritual work is the only work you carry with you. You carry it in between lives, and you carry it into your next life. It's the only investment you can make down here that is actually worthwhile. So our institutions became completely compromised. And this was done intentionally by the Kabbalists and the Masons and other ancillary secret society groups. Some of them known to the public and some of them unknown. Okay? They've got some nasty ones in France. I was watching a documentary last night, an hour and 37 minutes on YouTube about the torture castle in France. And it's an old chateau. They have them in Belgium too. By the way, the French are up to their necks in this dark shit, the human sacrifice, the orgies, the sodomy, the human killing, and all of this stuff, okay? The dark entity commiseration. They're up to their necks in it, okay? In fact, in many ways, they're some of the darker people on the planet. A lot of it is concentrated in those cultures. And we forget about them because we're an English-speaking culture and we don't think much beyond the Five Eyes. You know, Canada, the United States, Great Britain, Australia, and New Zealand. But believe me when I tell you, they're steeped in it. It exists in Portugal and Spain. Any old aristocratic society has this underworld, okay? And they flourish. So one of the ways that you know that you're not abandoned is that the resources the world needs are coming into the world. We have the geniuses to change every system. We have the geniuses to provide the hydrogen engine that everybody can use, a car that you can buy for $15,000 that can go 1,000 kilometers on 2 liters of tap water. Okay, what the problem is, the controllers of the systems, the satanic nature of the systems. The reptilians have been ingenious in their strategy for controlling and conquering the surface world. You have to never get angry at your enemy. Your enemy is your friend. They're trying to teach you something spiritually. Okay, all conflict is teaching. In many ways, this world was built for conflict, that it's the natural outcome of a binary system, opposing polarities. Okay? When binary systems are in harmony, the revolution is perfect. And for the most part, that's how our solar system works. That's how the moon works. That's how the sun works. The only system that is damaged and not working properly in this cosmology is our human organizational, governmental, and financial systems, which I guess you could say are governmental, but the chief tool used to control us is money. And that's why you can recognize that we're at such a pivot point now, okay? There's something I want to say that's kind of like a curveball. I guess you could associate it with tonight's podcast, but this came to me a couple days ago out of the blue. And I thought I would say it out loud because I've had a number of listeners contact me and ask me about all the Gnostic stuff and everything. Okay? Is there really an etheric net around the planet? Is it really a prison planet? Is it this? Is it that? And the answer is yes and no. And the first time I had this conversation was with one of my listeners and my friend now in Panama, Jim, and he had done a deep dive on that Howie gentleman in Howie Muscovitz, I think his name is, in Canada. Years and years of research into the Gnostics and the Cathars. And I mean, this is a relatively persistent archetypal myth in the human experience. It's not just in the Western Canada. It does occur elsewhere. And I didn't know how to answer this question, you know. But for me, the way I work is that once I ask the question, it's like ordering something from Amazon. The universe is going to deliver the answer to me. So is there a net around this place? Can you not escape? Yes and no. It depends what level of consciousness you achieve while you're in a body. Okay? And here's my proof. Is this world animated and sustained by the primary spiritual force that we would call the Creator or God? The real God, not Jehovah or Yahweh, who's probably a tall white Draco, by the way. I agree with my friend Greg there. So, is it animated by the same life force that animates everything? The stars, the circular forces that keep everything in motion? Well, the answer is yes. This planet is animated and sustained by the Creator. And so if the Creator's energy can get in here, and we are of the Creator in our purest form, why can't we get out? If the Creator's energy could not get out, it would bottle up here and explode the planet. Because the energy of the Creator moves in a kind of orbit itself. It comes down, and then it goes back up to the Creator. Comes down, goes back up, comes down, goes back up. It's a perpetual flow of energy that is a vibrational frequency human beings can tune into with their inner ears and their inner eye as varying shades of light and varying frequencies of divine harmonics. Okay? And this is why there is so much harmonic work and spiritual work, even if the pundits don't understand why they're still doing it, because they're trying to recreate or mimic the sounds of the Creator so that they can come into harmony with the Creator. So can we get out of here? Yes. Do most human beings end up staying here in the firefly in the glass jar? You know, like when we're all kids, we go and we trap fireflies in glass jars, and we're not trying to be cruel or anything. We're just being 8-year-old boys, and we like looking at the firefly, and then, oh boy, the poor firefly dies in the jar because we forgot that it has to eat and fly around and be free to live. Are we being recycled here in a reincarnation fashion? Yes, but I'd say are there aberrations in the system? Yes. Is this a normally functioning system the way most of the planets that create sentient life in this universe function? No, it isn't. And so there's some truth to the Gnostic stuff, but it's not absolute. Okay? Very often, the solution to a question is a position between the absolute no and the absolute yes, with a qualification. And I don't mean to get all legal, but that's just the way it is. And I think that one of the ways you do get out is to get your frequency into love, divine love, and harmony with everything. And that's how you get out. But if you're trying to get out and you still are holding on to a lot of things and you're still astrally dense, you're not going to get out. Okay? So there's my answer to that question. So it's all planned. Okay? So you see everything I'm talking about. Let's go back to Kissinger. So there's the three things. I go on these stories inside of stories inside of stories. I don't know. It's just the way the Talamanca review works. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. Okay? So number one, you get the appointment of Klaus Schwab in the World Economic Forum, which is a very deliberate attempt to steer the public mind. Well, if we're under some alien control and it's an autocracy, why does the human mind need to be steered so much? Because our thoughts are the energy that they maintain the social reality with. If they can control what we think, they can control us. This whole game would end tomorrow if everybody on the planet said, fuck you, to the controllers, went off and built an earth bag house, grew their own food, had their own water supply, and lived like Indian villagers. But there's too many human beings that don't want to do that. They want to be part of the system because they're also corrupt. Not satanically corrupt, but they're corrupt. They like a corrupt lifestyle. Whatever. They like making money they didn't really earn, you know, stockbrokers, hedge fund managers. You can't tell me that's money earned. That's money stolen. It's legal, but it's not lawful spiritually. I mean, you can kid yourself all you want. People kid themselves all the time in the way and manner they make money, and they think they're good people. Oh, I give to charity. Now, let me understand this correctly. You basically steal $400,000 a year. You give $10,000 to a charity, and you think you're going to buy off the all-seeing eye of the Creator and the Lords of Karma. You think you're a good guy. Well, I'm just going to leave you to find that out in your afterlife review and where they put you in between your lives. Okay, you'll figure it out. You got to be good. And I'm not going to use the old Catholic fear stuff. Oh, you're going to go to hell forever. Not true. But it's also true that there are consequences. Okay, there are consequences in your in-between life. It's not everybody just goes to a heavenly place, rests for a while, like these near-death experience people are telling you, and come back. And the near-death experience, I will keep repeating this, it is not the same thing as really dying. Okay? It's not the same thing. The aspects of it are the same, but it's not the same thing as really dying. When you really die, you go where your vibrational frequency belongs. And there's no cheating the system. It's all harmonics. And this is why the practice of the love harmony is so important. It changes your station, even in between lives. Boy, I just can't get these three things listed. Every time I go back to the World Economic Forum, I find another apple to pick off the tree and bite and talk about, and I just go off on another tangent. I can't help myself. Anyways, yeah, so there's a lot to say about the World Economic Forum. And look at its power now. Right? Look at its power now. And at its very core, all of its members are a part of this anti-life cult. I'm going to stop calling it satanic. Anti-life cult. Death cult. Perversions. Profound perversions. Right? Klaus Schwab is, I've just heard so many things about him. He's a sodomite. You know, he's the bull. Likes his young men, young boys. You know, likes to sodomize young men. It's a power thing. Okay? That's not a normal sexuality. The moment I see a disharmonious sexuality, I know everything I need to know about a person. And they do too. And that's why they promote it. And that's why they're promoting all this diversity, equity, and inclusion, to get all these freaks into positions of power, to further corrupt our systems. Because these people are angry. Because we don't really accept them. We tolerate them. But you can't really accept gay people if you're straight. You can tolerate them. You can make nice. But you don't, deep down, you don't really accept them. And I don't mean to offend people of alternative sexuality. Would you rather I lie? Or would you rather I just tell you the truth? Okay? There is no possible way that heterosexual people can accept non-normative sexuality, that at the very least, like, you can be gay or lesbian, and if you're genuinely of that persuasion, meaning the disposition was there before puberty, which is the key sign, and there's no sexual trauma in your family, if you know gay or lesbian people like that, they will take on all the same responsibilities as straight people. They will raise children. They will make sacrifices. They will lose sleep waking up with babies, adopted or otherwise, in vitro fertilization. They will love their children. They will get fat, wrinkled, and age faster, like all of us who raise children. And that's not the people I'm referring to. I'm referring to people like Klaus Schwab, whose entire reason for having a penis is to relieve stress, pleasure himself, and dominate other things, and create or produce nothing with his seed. That's what I'm talking about. And that's low-hanging fruit in how perverse these people get. It goes all, have you guys been following Candace Owens and her ongoing fascination with Bridget Macron? This is everywhere. Go back and watch some of my earlier videos. You know, the Catamite Parade is a good one. Talking about Trudeau and Obama. Why do you think there was such a bromance between Obama when Trudeau got into office? That was the most elaborate parade thrown in Washington for a foreign dignitary visiting in both of Obama's terms. Okay? Trudeau came in at the end of Obama's second term. Okay? And the most elaborate Washington greeting, ticker tape parade, everything given to any leader was Trudeau. The Vanity Fair page, just like the Vanity Fair page for Vladimir Zelensky and his wife. Okay? Now you understand what's going on with U.S. aid giving all this money to American media outlets. They're buying the coverage they want. Wake up, folks. Trump's in collusion with Russia. Are you fucking stupid? You're already living in Russia, you fucking morons. That's how they ran Pravda in the 70s and 60s, 70s, and 80s in Russia. It was state-run media. It's a one-to-one match. And every day I wake up, I have to watch these fucking morons on X and Facebook and Instagram. Trump's in collusion with Russia. Biden and Harris and Obama were Russia, you fucking idiots. Boy, I don't know how you get through to people anymore. I got to get a coffee and take a break. I'm getting heated up, and this wasn't supposed to happen. So we're going to come back on the three things, and I've only talked about the first so far, which is the World Economic Forum. All of it happening in 1972. And what I'm trying to prove to you is this is all planned, okay? It's all planned. Just like you can see spiritual ley lines in your own life, I document my own in The Devil in Us. You know, I get kicked out of the house, and the very first apartment I rent is the actual apartment I was conceived in. Not just the same building, actually the same apartment 12A on Cooper Street in Ottawa. And Ottawa's not a small city. There's no probability matrix for that. My son's born June 2nd. My father's born June 2nd. I'm born July 12th. I'm born 40 days after my father's 31st birthday. My son is born 40 days before my 40th birthday. It's my son's birth and my birth to my father and my father's birth. I'm like the mirror reflecting the two. You can't make, and this is why astrology doesn't interest me. Okay? Why would I give a fuck what Uranus is doing when through my meditation I'm noticing things like this in my life? That seems a little bit more important to me than astrology. And these ley lines are everywhere, and you cannot be taught them. You have to tune into them. Anyways, three things, WEF. I'll be right back. I got to go get a coffee. Got myself a cigar there. Smoking like a beat poet here while my son's here. I got to go back to vaping when he leaves, and I will. Don't worry about old Bruce. All right, so that's why there was the big bromance for Trudeau under the Obama administration, okay? They're both raised by communist fathers, and I mean like die-hard, kill them all fucking communists, okay? You got Pierre Elliott Trudeau having a fraternal relationship with Mao Zedong at the victory table in 1949 when they chased the Kuomintang over the Taiwan Straits. You've got Justin Trudeau, sired by Fidel Castro. That is not a lie. He really was, okay? And the Canadian media, which is also paid and basically maintained by the Canadian government, they were given a $600 million bailout about 6 years ago. And then Trudeau later was recorded bragging at a private dinner with like 500 people there, a liberal convention or something. He literally bragged about buying the media. Can people think Trump's with Russia? Fucking morons. You're in Russia now. That's how a communist country runs. The government controls the media. And by the way, you see what we're going through now? This is what it was like in Russia. You talk to anybody who survived it and knew how shitty it was, they will tell you these stories. Wasn't the party you had to worry about. The party didn't have enough people in the secret police. It was your fucking idiotic, brainwashed neighbors you had to worry about. Oh, I was mowing my lawn and I heard them speaking in Polish and they were criticizing the party. I don't like to eavesdrop, but what they were saying was so caustic. I wrote it down. Here's what they said. Fuck great leader so-and-so. They do this, and this incorrectly. Next thing you know, you got the secret police knocking on your door and you're dragged off to a rehabilitation camp for 6 months, a year, or maybe 10 years. Okay? That's how it works. And if you don't think we came this close to it with Harrison Waltz, you're fucking crazy. And please do not apply your stupid, limited, fucking binary thinking to what I just said. I'm not giving a blank check to Trump by what I just said. He's a bad option too, but he was the best option of the two. Okay? It's that simple. Anyways, I got to get on track here. So, the second thing, I mentioned the two last night, and then I made another correlation. What was it? It was the the World Economic Forum was formed, and Richard Nixon goes to China. And they begin prepping China for the role it now has. Because everything China is today is because of the West. And it's not like we miscalculated. This is all done by design. If you think this is just, they work hard. The kids go to school and they made the most of the opportunities they were giving. I'm not putting the Chinese down for a moment. 我会讲国语. I speak Mandarin. Okay? I love the Chinese people. But this was planned by global controllers. Okay? China was, now I'm not sure China is perfectly playing the role that was written for them in 1972. I think they're going a little off script. Okay? Because they've gotten very powerful. Nixon goes over and he opens up China. And then very shortly after that, in the late 70s, 5 or 6 years later, I'd have to check the dates. I don't do any research for these shows, but you can top drop anything I say, and it's accurate. Okay? I have a mind like a steel trap. And I've been following politics my whole life. It's my hobby horse, my passion. So Nixon goes over in 72, and a few short years later, at the very least, but before 1980, China breaks with its strict communist model and begins to experiment with capitalism. It begins with what they call SEZs, and most of them were coastal cities, okay? So they could export. SEZ stands for Special Economic Zone. And these things were so policed, you needed a special internal Chinese passport to get into the SEZs. If the Communist Party did not want you in the SEZs or knowing what was going on in the SEZs, you did not get a passport. Okay? And that's how they began to integrate with the West, was through these special economic zones. And it all starts with Nixon going over. Okay. Now, after Mao dies is when it really picks up. And it really picks up with Deng Xiaoping, who's the second great leader of China. And then they went through a couple of decades where it looked like something approximating Western politics, where Beijing would change its leader every 4, 6, or 8 years. And there was what appeared to be political process there. Okay. And then third great leader comes in. Oh, and in this period after Deng Xiaoping, they further liberalized the communist model by setting term limits on leadership, which is clearly a democratic principle. Now, the third great leader is the one now, Xi Jinping. And what did he do? Well, if you don't know, Xi Jinping canceled term limits. He set himself up to rule for the entirety of his life, if he can hold it that long without getting his throat cut. Because Chinese politics is like cockfighting or pit bull fighting. It's really rough. People get killed and murdered and disappeared all the time in the Beijing political system, okay? Billionaires get shot in the head over there. So this is all Nixon. Coincidentally, the same year that the World Economic is formed. Now here's the third thing that just came to me today. This is also the time that Richard Nixon takes us off the gold standard. There is no way, when you understand how those three things are affecting us today, that you cannot understand that everything that was done in 1972 was a 50-year plan, and it's coming to fruition now. So what's going on now? Well, China is a huge problem, and they are the selected entity of the World Economic. They are the World Economic Forum's model for global governance. And their rationale to the stupid people, because people are stupid, they don't think, they don't investigate, and they certainly don't think critically. People call me a prick all the time. I'm a tough guy to have a dinner party with, right? No, I mean, if I'm visiting you, I'm going to be polite and everything. I'm not going to talk politics or anything like that. But there have been many times I've been at dinner parties and stuff with girlfriends, and there's like 12 people, 6 couples around a table. And some fucking moron with a PhD or something in something starts spouting off. And I just, I can just feel my thermostat going up. And then finally I just start talking. I don't yell or anything. I just, in 2 sentences, I let the guy know he's a fucking idiot without saying, you're a fucking idiot. Okay? You can hear a pin drop. But people need this. They need to be braced. It's like shock therapy for the stupid. Shock therapy is to bring people out of catatonia, by the way. So yeah, I'm medically correct, because these people are in a perceptual catatonia. They're not perceiving correctly. Thinking and perceiving are 2 completely different things. Perceiving is a spiritual art. Thinking is something any fucking moron can do. You can teach anybody to think. You can put 5 manuals in front of them and say, well, this is a 4-year course in electrical engineering. Let's see if you can do it in 4 years. A genius will be done in 6 months. Somebody capable of the rigors of the program and pre-prepared by all the high school math will get it done in the 4 years and pass all the exams. Somebody just not suited to that way of thinking, like me, I don't like thinking mathematically, we'll just say, I don't want to do that. I'm more of a writer. That's thinking. Anybody can think, okay? Creativity and perception are spiritual arts, and that's why they're killing them. Because the whole game going on this planet now is to kill the spirit of mankind. That's what communism does. And make no mistake about it, the World Economic Forum is proposing a form of global communism. The principle of communism is you don't own anything. They've been telling us for fucking years, and nobody puts this together. You don't get any intrepid columnist at the New York Times pointing this out. Why? because their editors won't. It's not that the journalists don't want to write it. I'm not going to put it on them. The editors won't let them. And the editors may even want those stories to go forward. And the editors are blocked. Who blocks the editors? The publishers. They're the people. It's their business. The publisher is appointed, or the senior editor is appointed by the publisher. Now, in old world journalism, right up until the 90s, there was a contract between a senior editor at a newspaper, like the overall editor of the newspaper, and the publisher, where the publisher could not interfere with editorial direction. It would be like appointing someone president of the United States, but saying, okay, but only do what we want to do. I'm going to take a second to let that sink in. And this is how the world is won. This is how the world is run. But hey, Trump's in with Russia, man. He's fucking in with Russia. Russia isn't even Russia anymore. If I hear one more fucking moron write me an email about the evil Russia, I'm just going to fucking lose my shit. Okay? Yeah, they're imperfect. Yeah, they're run by oligarchs. Yeah, 40% of their gross... These little ones go out so easily. Yeah, 40% of their gross domestic product is consumed by their military budget. They're not a perfect place. Absolutely, they're not a perfect place. Okay? But the greater evil is what I'm talking about now. It's not that I don't recognize some of the evil going on in Russia, but I think the evil going on in the West is worse. The rampant mind control, the mutilation of young people's genitalia, the transfiguration of human sexuality, so divorced from the Creator's intent behind it, which is procreation, one can only wonder what a government is doing in promoting these ideologies, other than sabotaging their own society and their own culture. Going back to Margaret Mead, family is the building block of society. So those are the three things. Do you think it was a coincidence that all those things happened in the same year? Going off the gold standard, and there's talk about going back on the gold standard now. Okay? So going off the gold standard, the formation of the World Economic Forum, and Henry Kissinger brokering or opening up China to the West. You think that's a coincidence? I don't think it's a coincidence. I don't see how anybody could look at that and go, oh, it's just a coincidence, Bruce. Sure, people sitting around writing policy papers trying to plan out over 25 or 50 years. These wouldn't be policy papers written in the State Department. This is more Club of Rome, Committee of 300 stuff, which is probably a shadow consultancy to the WEF. And the WEF is undoubtedly a creation of the Committee of 300. And all of this stuff is meant to ultimately lead us to a point where we live in a world that they completely control, and the basic idea of human freedom doesn't exist anymore. Now, before you think I'm some moron in Alabama running around with a shotgun in a pickup truck and a Confederate flag for a license plate, that's not what I mean by freedom. I mean the freedom to grow spiritually, because make no mistake about it, there is a force on this planet that does not want the human frequency going to a certain level. We've been due to go to a higher level of frequency for quite some time now, centuries. And it's been held back. And it's held back by deliberately throttling us with useless wars meant to traumatize us, horrible campaigns, very dark rituals. What do you think all these rituals are doing? Why do you think they do them all on ley lines? Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Why do you think they do them all on ley lines? Okay? Why do you think the most satanic place in America, Pennsylvania, has all the energy ley lines in America? Why do you think the most satanic place in Canada, Montreal, has all the same powerful ley lines, both in convergence of geographic ley lines and convergence of waterways? Those are the things you're looking for. Okay? Oh, Bruce, it's just for commerce. Things get shipped on boats. You need the Rideau River in Montreal. You need those rivers in Pennsylvania. Yeah, there's always a cover story, but behind it all, there's this insidious black magic that has been running us for quite some time now. That's what it is. And their final plan is massive depopulation. And they let you know, too. They start broadcasting. They actually, at the inception of these programs, like if you were to go back and read some of the white papers from the 1970s, like the Iron Mountain paper and everything, they actually say everything pretty much I'm saying on this podcast. So they actually begin by telling you exactly what they're going to do. And then they just, but it never really gets picked up on. The media never discusses it. It never really gets talked about in any kind of a significant way. And people just forget about it. Okay? So everything is going according to plan. And right now, the plan is depopulation. And I think the major difference between the Trump administration and what would have been the Harris-Walz administration is the depopulation in the Trump system will be much more like following natural law. Like if you can survive by your own wits, no party secret police are going to hunt you down because you don't believe in transgenderism or shared washrooms. They're going to leave you alone. But had we gone with the Harrison-Walz model, the depopulation would have been ideological, like a communist depopulation. But depopulation is happening. And tonight I'm going to tell you why. It's similar to, but not exactly the reasons they give. It has to do with the depleting oxygen levels in our atmosphere due to the overconsumption of oxygen-producing land on the planet and the proliferation of human populations and the lifestyle of those populations. And this is why the 15-minute city is coming in and all of these things. Not everything that the negatives propose, in fact, nothing they propose is factually inaccurate. They just take the opportunity of the catastrophe to exercise more negativity because negativity is their nature, and they enjoy the suffering and destruction of human beings. They literally enjoy the suffering and destruction of human beings. If somebody goes to a ritual and they sacrifice a human being or a human child, do you not think they'd find a similar pleasure in 100,000 people being wiped out by missiles in 24 hours? Of course they would. That's pleasurable for them. If you're gay, you're going to like gay porn. It's pleasurable for you. If you're part of this anti-life cult, you're going to like death, whether it's in a ritual or whether it's through mass destruction. And you're going to like suffering. Because the anti-life cult, they love suffering. They absolutely love and adore suffering. And I mean that literally. They love and adore it. It's like how you or I might feel listening to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. They love and adore it. Okay? And what the negatives will do is when they're given cosmic cause, like depletion of the planet and the necessity of a new model of living, rather than tell us what's really going on so that we can accommodate and live correctly, they don't tell us because they want to kill us in the manner that they want to kill us, because it's very important to them that they kill us, that we don't die by natural causes, because that's what the anti-life cult is all about. It's death. It's a celebration of death and the energies of life in the rotting corpses being given to that which they commiserate with, which in turn, through the machinations of the astrophysical reality, gives them more power and opportunity on Earth. Right? This is how the whole thing works. It's not really that complicated. So it's all a plan. And it's all an occult plan. And they never tell you what's really going on, but they constantly tell you indirectly. whether it be through movies or television or what have you. Okay? They kind of have to do that because I explained this before in a previous podcast. Because if they didn't bleed off some of the intuitive psychic awareness we have about what's happening through false catharsis, like an Avengers movie, oh, a portal's going to be open and hellish entities are going to come through. Yeah, they're literally going to open a portal and bring hellish entities in on the astral. You won't see them if your third eye's not open, but you'll just see people going crazier and crazier. And by the way, it's happening right now. So we can assume the portals are open, or partially open anyways. But they'll make a movie about it, won't they? They'll make a movie about a portal opening up over New York and Loki and some alien race coming in, riding giant lizard-like mechanical creatures, trying to destroy New York and the world. There you go. So everything in the movie is basically true, except there's no Avengers. That part's not true. That's just false hope. That's just the cover they tell their story under. Anyways, that's good enough for tonight. I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review.